Hi, this is a video covering the Form Builder. So we're going to move through how the Form Builder works. You can see at the top of the page here there's a Details tab, which we're in now, then an Images tab, Form Builder, PDF, Actions and Variables. Now there are individual videos on each of these tabs, so I'll only be covering them fairly generally in this video, but hopefully by the end of this video you'll have a good understanding of how forms work and how to build a form. Okay, so the page that we're on now is the form details, and this is where you can see that you can give the form a title, a description, select what type of form it is, and forms can either be available in both the app and the portal or just in the portal, and that's the web-based management portal we're referring to there. Then you've got the form mode. So there's 4 different modes. It can be safety first. Now we have safety first forms so that when you dispatch a job to a technician in the field, let's say, you can categorize certain forms as safety first forms, and you can have different safety forms for different types of jobs that you do. Now by tagging it as a safety first form, there is a rule where the user must submit the safety first forms for that job before they start on the job forms. So from a compliance perspective, it's a very powerful way of making sure that everybody is completing those safety first forms before beginning work. Beta mode means that it's something that you're working on, it's not available for end users to complete. Locked means that only the super admin can make changes to the finished form once it's built. And kiosk mode is really good for receptions or exhibitions or trade shows where you're collecting information or you're not present when that information is being collected. The customer can fill the form in, hit submit, the page refreshes, ready for the next customer to enter their information. So we call that kiosk mode. On the right hand side of the permissions, and this is where you set your user groups and decide who can start and view a form, and also who can edit a submitted form. So once the form has been completed and submitted, who has permission then to edit that submitted form. And we really encourage you to put your users into user groups like we have here, the sales team, the technical team, the maintenance team, for example, so that you can drive the permissions throughout the system with those user groups. Okay, left-hand corner is the version control details. So if you're running document management or an ISO system or something like that, then all of those version control details are set. And then finally on the right-hand side, we are able to convert any form into a web form if you have the web form add-on. Web forms are fantastic to be completed by people outside of your business. So it might be embedded in your website as an iframe for contact us or request job or booking forms and that sort of thing, or it might be sent out in an email for things like surveys or contracts or agreements or proposals. So any form that you build can be used in jobs, in the management portal by your internal team, or externally by non-employees using the web form options. Really powerful add-on, and we'll have a look at that later in the video. All right, so let's move across this tab. So the next tab is images. If you're going to use images in the form like safety risks, matrices, or pictures of vehicles or whatever it might be, then you upload the images here so that you can use them in the form builder. To add a new image, you simply click the green add image, upload it, and it will be available then to drop into your form. Let's jump into the form builder. This is where the magic happens. So here it is, and it's a drag and drop WYSIWYG form builder. WYSIWYG means what you see is what you get. So as you're building it, you can see the results of what you're doing. There are 3 sections to the form builder. On the left hand side is the toolbox. In the center is the form itself. And then on the right hand side are the settings for the field that you have clicked on. So at the moment I'm on the heading, the project update. And so for each of the different fields, I can click across and make a range of different setting changes for each of those individual fields. In a lot of cases, you won't need to touch the settings. In other cases, you will. Things like making the field required, mandatory, locking it so it can't be changed, and that sort of thing is all controlled within the field settings for each individual field within the form. Okay. Now, the toolbox has a number of different expandable sections: structure, CRM integration, page layout, entry fields, multiple choice, and then the advanced fields. So you just click on those to expand them. The structure of the form is things like the main headings, subheading sections, repeatable sections, tables, and labels. Other areas, the CRM enables you to do lookups to your client database, to their locations and zones within those locations. So that's fantastic for things like asset management or jobs, where when you select the client, it will automatically filter from that client their different locations. And then within the selected location, you can filter down to individual zones. And if you're linking it to the asset register, it will then filter the assets to only show you the assets from that zone, from that location for that client. So again, we'll have a look at that in more detail, linking to the asset register. The page layout, PDF helpful items, things like page breaks. The entry fields are all the common entry type fields that you would use, and this is where you'll probably grab most of your information. Text boxes, numbers, currency, date, time, location, email, and telephone, all the common types of fields that you have in forms. Multiple choice, there's 4 different options for multiple choice: checkboxes, radio buttons, drop downs, and then colored buttons, which are awesome for highlighting in a PDF, red, green, or yellow, pass, fail, that sort of thing. And then finally, we've got all the cool stuff in the advanced section: the camera, adding images, adding attachments, signing on screen with signature, automated calculations. There's a full drawing tool, a mud map drawing tool with legends and icons, card payment, sliders for things like surveys, GPS location grabbing, a QR and barcode reader, so you can scan a QR or barcode and it can pull information in from your databases, and then an audio recording. Down the bottom, and this is important, to delete a field in a form, you right click on it and then hit delete. And when you do that, it'll go red. And so when the form is saved, that field will be deleted. You unclick it in the same way if you've made a mistake and you don't want to delete it. So just a point there to remember. All right, let's very quickly just build a section and show you how easy it is to do. So I'm going to go to structure and add a new subheader at the top, and we'll call that client details. So I'm going to click on the subheader so that I can go and edit those details, and I'll drop down to title and change that to client details. And as I'm changing it on the right hand field settings, it's updating in the form so I can see how that looks. Now, to build the form itself, I'm just going to drag in the fields that I need. So I might start with the date, drag that in, and the time, and then I'm going to have a multiple choice question. So I'll grab a radio button. Okay, and you can see when I've dragged in the multiple choice, it's automatically defaulted to yes, no, and not applicable. That's because it's a common one, but it's very easy to change that into what you want, and we'll demonstrate that now as well. And then I might just add a standard field, just a text box. We'll put that in underneath. So you can see there's a blue area highlights, that's the destination, so it's clear where I'm dropping that field. Okay, so you can see I've added 4 different fields there. Very easily could have built the form in a few minutes if you know what you're doing and you've got all the information to hand. If I want to change any of these things like time, I'll click on the time field, and I might want to make that start time instead. So I'll just go over and click start time, enter that in to the question, and that's updating it in the form to start time. Okay, now with things like date and start time, you can make them automatically set. So when I click on date, if I go over to the properties on the right hand side, I can have that down the bottom. It's got auto answer, so I'll check that. That will automatically populate with today's date as soon as I open the form. And then I might want to lock that so the user can't change it. And that's even more important on the start time. So when this form is opened, it will automatically populate. If I hit auto answer down the bottom, auto answer, automatically populate with the start time, and then I'm going to lock it so the user can't change it, and that will lock in for sure when this form was opened. Okay, so hopefully you can see how easy that is just to drag and drop the different fields. If I want to add a signature at the bottom of that section, I'll just grab it, drop it in, and instead of signature I might want client signature. So I'll go to the settings on the right hand side and add in client signature. Okay, so that's fairly simple, just dragging and dropping and building those forms as you'd like it to do. The next thing I want to show you is events, and events occur around multiple choice questions. And I guess this works in the same way as paper forms will have. If you've answered yes, then go to section 3. We're able to hide different elements and have them only appear if certain answers are given. So I'm going to click on the enter question, and I'm going to go across to the question there and change it to risk level, just as an example. Okay, so I've changed that to risk level. Now, yes, no, and not applicable doesn't make sense. So I'm going to change those to high, medium, and low. You've got a couple of different ways of doing this. You can either hit delete in the current fields, and that will delete those fields that are there, or you can double click on it and edit it from the name. So you either delete it or you edit it and change it. And the risk levels we want to have are high. So I've changed that to high, and I'll change NA to medium. Add that. And then I'll add an item. And to add items to that drop down or list, you go to the gray box underneath the add items here box, and I'll add low. And I'm also add not applicable. So I'll add NA at the bottom. Once you've added at the bottom, just hit add, and that will bring them up into the top. We have this gray section so that you can copy and paste information from other documents or whatever it might be, paste them into the gray area, edit them so that you're happy with them, and then as soon as you hit add, it will bring them up into the form ready to be used. So if I go back to the form now, I can see the risk level, and I can see that those drop downs have changed into low, high, medium, and not applicable. Now the order's not quite right there. I'd rather go low, medium, high. So again, I go back to my settings, grab the low, move that to the top, then medium, and then high. And that will update when I refresh. Okay, so at the risk level, I'm going to ask the user to decide what level of risk they've encountered. Okay, now if it's low or medium, I don't mind. I don't need any further information. However, if it's high, I want to trigger some actions. So here's how I do that. I go across to the properties, and next to that you can see a section called events. If I click on events, I can see those different fields, and here's what I want to happen. If the answer is A, I want to make the next section visible. Okay, so let's have a look at this again. We've got events, we've got a new event. Select the answer below that is going to trigger the event. Well, I want this event to trigger if the answer is high, and the action that I want is to make a certain field visible. Now you can make individual fields visible, you can make entire subheader sections visible. You can see the other options here as well. Things like make invisible, must answer, becomes optional to answer, or to set a value. So set values can be used in lots of ways, but an example is that if they answer high, I want to give a field a set value of 1, for example, and then you can start scoring the results as you're filling a form in. Not only are you triggering actions, but you're also scoring, and that can be used in lots of different ways. Okay, so the event that I've set is if the answer is high, I want to make the next question visible. If we go back to that next question, it might be, please provide high risk details. So I'll type that in. Please provide high risk details. Okay, now I don't want that to be visible all the time because it's only relevant if they've hit high risk. So I'm going to make that field turn off the visibility, and it will grey out. So it's invisible unless the user selects high and then it will become visible. I might also want them to take a photo if it becomes visible. So I'll drag the photo in, and I'll change the setting to high risk photo. And I don't want that to be visible either. So I'm going to make that turn off the visibility. And then I've got to go back to my actions, risk level, events, and I'm going to add a new event. If it is high, I want to make that high risk photo question visible as well. Now both of these should be mandatory. So when I go back to the settings, I can click on required, and that will make it mandatory that it's completed. All right, so a little bit of complicated options there. Not always necessary, but hopefully you can see the value in that. And like I say, it's not just making individual questions visible or not, it's also making entire sections visible or not. Okay, I'm just going to move down through the form now just to show you some examples of what else you can do, just so you can see the concepts of what's possible. Now, this particular form that we built is a project update form. So if you're working on projects, and I'll just go down to the project record selector, this is the project record. And when you start the form, there's a whole lot of different options that you can choose. And the user might only select one of these. I'm just doing the pre-start check, or I'm recording daily work activity, or I'm assigning timesheet hours, or I'm recording materials used, etc. So the user might just be completing one of these sections, or they might be doing all of them, and that's why we make them checkboxes. And when they hit a checkbox for the pre-start check, for example, it will open up the question for pre-start, and here's what it's going to show. So this whole pre-start section is blank and can't be seen until they select that section. And the way that I did that is, let's go to that option, let's go to events. If they select pre-start check, then I want to make the whole pre-start section visible, and that will open up that whole pre-start check. Okay, now I'm going to go through some of these sections because it's quite a good example of the sorts of lookups and things that you can do to gain real power from the forms and the different components. All right, so update details. First of all, when I click on the project update, and this is trying to find out who is the user that is actually filling this in, rather than having them enter their name, because they've logged into the app, we know who they are. So we can use the user variable section, and when I click on that, you can see that all of the different user variables are available to bring into the form. Their email address, their name, their first and last name, home phone number, job titles, emergency names, etc. And if you add custom user variables, so Formitize comes with all of the standard user variables, things like name and phone numbers and so on, but you can also add your own custom fields for users. Things like termite insurance accreditation number, pest license, additional mobile number, for example, can all be added as custom fields, and they're also available to be looked up. So when I add a lookup field to this, it's automatically going to bring in the user variable, user's name. And underneath that, it's automatically going to bring in the user's job title. So they don't have to do anything in that section. With time, it's automatically going to bring in the start time. That's locked, the user can't change it. It's auto answered, so it will automatically appear in the box, and the same with date. So with smart forms, you want as much information to auto populate and to not have to be entered as possible, just to save time and improve accuracy. So when it's recording who's doing this update, literally all of those fields are automatically populated. The user doesn't need to do anything. The way that we've done that, click on the field, go across to user variables, and select from the different variables you've got. And within user variables, you've got all of the individual users' details, but you've also got all of your company details as well. So all of those are available to be selected to auto-populate in the form so that you don't have to enter them manually when you're completing each form. Okay. We'll move down to the project details. Now, in the project details, we're asking them, first of all, to select the client. And this is where our CRM lookup comes in. When I select client, and I've added that field by going to the CRM section and dragging the CRM client field in, it will automatically start looking up your CRM and will populate then any fields that are related to the CRM that you want to bring into the form. Now, you won't want to bring all of them in, but there might be certain fields like location or zone or user client type that you might want to bring into the form automatically. So as soon as the user selects that field, it will open a drop-down, a lookup list of all of the available clients so they can select. Once they've selected the client, if you've got location added as well, it will then filter so that you can search the locations of the client that you selected. So it's a lookup of locations from the client selected, and that's all automatically brought in from these different fields in the form. As soon as you add client in, it automatically makes all of the different CRM fields available to choose. Let's keep on going. Okay, project number. Now, the project number is looking up a database. So in the forms list, you can see that you can have lookup databases, and you can use this for lots and lots of different things that the forms are able to look up. And here's an example. So for each project that you've got, there'll be a data table, and we'll have a quick look at that as well. Once again, it will, when the user clicks on that field, it will do a lookup of all of the current projects and will automatically populate the project name and the project status. So none of those elements need to be added. How do I do that? I click on the select project name, and then I move across to next to properties is a field lookup. And the first drop down is to grab the database that you want to look up. So all of the different databases that you've got will be available to select. I've grabbed the projects one, and then you grab the project number because that's what the user will be looking up. And once they've selected the project number, all of the different fields within the database are available to be automatically populated into the form. Now here you can see we've brought in others like project status, the project health and safety manager's name, the project health and safety manager's email, and the site supervisor's name and email, their mobile number, and the project current status. So it's pulling in all of those different fields from the database and making them available to populate fields in the form. So the user only needs to select the project number, and the lookup will pull in all of those related fields. Now, there is a separate video on databases and on form field lookups, so you can take those in as a separate video, which will help you understand it further. Okay, so in this case, as soon as I do that, all of those fields will automatically populate. So now we've looked up fields within the CRM, which includes the client, the location, and even the zone if you want to. And we've also made a lookup to our projects database and pulled information in from there. Okay, in terms of tables, you can see here that we've got a table of daily activities, and it's bringing in the actual activity where they enter what they're doing, then they enter in the hours, and then they add supporting photos. To do that, you grab a table and drop it where you want it. Put it in above that. There we go, here. And when I click on that table, I can then bring in the column headings. So I want a text box first, and then a number for the hours or the quantity. And then it could be, I want to add a photo as well. So with tables, what you are actually building is the column headings, and then you'll enter that information into the form, and we'll have a look at how that works in just a moment. All right, so that's tables. So I appreciate that I'm showing you a whole lot of information here. I hope I'm not going too quickly. There are more detailed videos on different components that we're looking at here, but it's really just about showing you how you can add those different sections and use the power of databases and lookups at the same time. All right, now let's go back and have a look at what that form would look like as a web form. So I've gone back to the details page and I'm just going to preview the web form. Now, obviously, when you're looking at it in the app, it's all set up for the app, but this is what an end customer, someone out of the business, would see. It'll automatically bring in your logo at the top, and it automatically creates a menu of the different subheaders within the form. Okay, so these are fields that will be automatically populated. You can see the time and date are automatically set. I'm in here as an anonymous user, so it can't grab those details yet, but it will when you're going in through the app. Within the client lookup, I can start searching clients. That will populate locations, and then I can enter the project number. So you can see it's giving me a list of available project numbers, and when I select that, the project name and the project status are both automatically populated. If I scroll down, here are my different options. What are you looking to do with this project record? I can either open up all of these different sections, or I can just select the section that I'm filling in today. Today I'm going to do a pre-start check, and I'm also going to do a safety alert. Now, by clicking those two checkboxes, it has opened up the hidden subheaders. So now I can see that safety alert that we built, and here's my high, medium, low options. I'm going to select high, and you can also see that all of the project information, who's the HSC manager, who's the HSC manager's email, all of that information has been pulled in from the lookup fields in the database. So I don't need to do any of that. And then when I submit this, it can send automatically emails to the project manager and to the site supervisor, pulling information from those fields. And here's the pre-start check that I ticked above. Site safety, this is just confirming that all of these things have been done for this particular project today, and then the sign on screen. Okay, if I want to open up other sections, then I can do that here. Assign timesheet hours, record materials used. So the idea of this form is that they come in, open it each time they're doing something. Each time they're adding a record to the project, they're selecting what record they're adding, and then they're submitting it. If I want to change the project status, I'll add that one, and now that will be available at the bottom. It brings in the current status from the database, and I'm going to update that now to the new status of, say, we're at the variation stage. Okay. Now, I really appreciate that I've gone through a lot here in a lot of detail. Hopefully it makes sense to you. As I said, if you need more detail on the individual components, then you can contact us or watch the individual videos. Once I've done that, I hit submit, and that will trigger what we call submitted form actions. So let's go and have a look at that now. I've gone back to the page, and you can see that's the next part, the actions. Okay. Now, this is one of the really powerful parts of Formitize. Building the form is one thing, submitting it from either the app or the management portal or the web form is another. This section is, okay, what do you want to happen when that web form or that job form is submitted? And here are your different options. If I select on the options, you've got email, email the PDF, insert or update databases, email XML, email PDF with attachments, and a whole lot more. Even send an SMS. So when a form is submitted, I want an SMS to be sent. I'm going to pick the most common one, which is email a PDF. All right, now when I do that, all of the different options then come up. And I guess most of them you don't need to do anything. What is really nice is to be able to name that PDF. So when I hit Control Space, you can see there's a hint underneath. Press Control Space to placeholder. I can bring in and just type in standard text that I want to appear in the naming of that PDF. But when I hit Control Space, all of the field names from the form are available to select. So project number and project name. And a really useful one for the naming of the PDF would be date as well. So I'll go down to the date field. And so every time this form is submitted, it will name that PDF with those details. And the email that's being sent can be done in exactly the same way. Email report. And then again, I can pull in either the same details or something else to name that particular email. And here I might have project name and the current status. So that's what the subject of the email will be that has that PDF attached. There's other things that you can do. I only want it to happen when the status of the form equals this, or when I submit this form, I want to give it a status of pending, for example. I can set conditions on whether or not this action will trigger, and that might be I only want to send this action if the safety answer is fail, or if the overall form status is fail. And that works really well for things like vehicle pre-start checks. If a vehicle pre-start check answer is fail, then I want to send an email automatically with a PDF that has photos attached to the health and safety manager or to the mechanical team. I can add resource documents. That's adding a PDF or a document to the PDF being generated by the system. So that's really good for things like terms and conditions or your current marketing brochure. That will automatically add that to every form that's being submitted in this way. And then you add your recipients. So who do you want to send this email automatically to? Now you've got the choice of either at the very bottom of this list is the user, but you've also got the ability to send it to email within the form. So there's the health and safety manager. They're the one that I want to receive this email whenever it's submitted, and you can add multiple recipients. So that's it. That's an example of a submitted form action. And as I said, you can have so many different actions triggering, creating CRM tasks, creating new leads, updating your asset register, so much power. And you can have as many new actions as you like just by adding additional actions here. All right, so that's submitted form actions, and it's a pretty big topic in itself just because it is so powerful and it can do so much. But the emailing the PDF is the standard one. And finally, with variables, this is where you can add additional company variables and additional user variables. So you don't have to go into the user section and add the user variables there. You can do it from this tab rather than having to leave the form builder. Okay, so there's the main sections. And then the one that we haven't really covered off is the PDF. And this is a separate subject. By default, it will automatically generate the standard look and feel of the Formitize PDF, but there's a whole lot more that you can do, and I think it's best to watch the separate video on this in terms of the other things that you can do. But you've got different options, different PDF settings, and here you can add elements like front covers to your documents, body styling, size of photos, that sort of thing. The PDF preview will show you what that PDF will look like, and that's downloadable. You can generate a blank PDF, so that can be used for manually filling in if you're offline. And you can actually, if you're going to customize and build your own PDF to look exactly as you want it, or you've got someone that can do that for you, then you can copy the HTML of our standard default look and feel and adapt that. And that's a service that our team provides here as well. If you need that finished PDF to look and feel a certain way other than the way of our default, then that's possible there. Okay. So there's the 6 different sections of the form builder. Don't forget, just to simplify things down a little bit, if you go to the form bank, all of our templates are available for you to choose from. So things like health and safety forms, you can go and grab any of these and use them either as they are, or you can download the template. So if I grab one, there's a return to work plan. When I click on it, I can see the details. This is the default look that I talked about. It will bring in your logo. It will bring in your primary color, your questions on the left and answers on the right with a tint of your color. All of the document management sections will be put in automatically for you. There's an example of the table layout. Again, it brings in your colors in the headers and then the fields. So that's a typical example. Again, another table. It's type, name, signature, and date were the 4 columns of that table. If I want to use that one, then I just hit Upload Template. That will bring it into my template list. And so I go now to Forms, View Form Templates. And now I'll be able to see the one that I just uploaded will be at the top. There's the Return to Work plan. And now I can go and edit that Return to Work plan. Takes me to this page first, so I can do the settings and so on. If I go into the Form Builder, there it is, and now I can use the drag and drop, rearrange, rename it, do whatever I like to make that exactly as I want it for my business. Now, one final thing that's really important to note, up in the top right hand corner, you've got the ability to save the form, and we encourage you to do that regularly. Deploying the form means that it will be available to users. Okay, so once you've deployed it, it will be available to your users in the app and in the management portal. If you make a change, so let's say I change that to first name, and then I save, you can see across the top here, next to the name of the form, it says you're one save ahead of the previous deploy. So I have made a change to the form and I have saved it, but I haven't deployed it yet. So that's a warning just to let me know that haven't dispatched the final version. When I hit deploy, you'll see that that orange message changes to green to let me know that I'm up to date. So you can make multiple changes before you deploy. If you hit deploy, it will save and deploy in one go. You can revert back to the previous saved version, and you can also jump to a previous version as well. So if you have deployed it multiple times, you are able to hit that drop down and go back to a previously deployed version if you've made mistakes or you want to go back to an old version. Okay, again, I know I've covered a lot in this video and then you've probably got lots of other questions, but I really wanted to just show you the power and the capability of it. And of course, our support team are here to help you, as are our professional services team, who are very happy to build your forms for you. We build the first form for free as part of that free trial, as a proof of concept to show you the concept and how it works. But we do provide that as a service to build those forms for you, get those submitted form actions occurring, and getting it exactly as you need. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you have lots of fun building forms for your business.